have the Boulevard.
I can put on my best French accent and say, hello, I want the Boulevardier. And all of your French audience just rolled their eyes.
Hello and welcome to the Rose and Rockstar from the Rockstar CMO effing marketing podcast and the Marketing Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ian Truscott. I'm not a rockstar, but I am a CMO. It's Sunday the 1st of June. Apologies for the delay getting this published this week. I was away for a couple of days celebrating my birthday and had some travel issues getting back. But in a moment, we will be joining my chum and Chief Troublemaker at the Seventh Bear in our virtual bar, the Rose and Rockstar, for a cocktail and a question from me. This week, we're discussing the fine line of being different and distinct, and Robert shares his idea of creating uncommon value over a fancy classic cocktail with a fancy name. But first, we need to pay the bar tab. I'll be back in a moment.
We'll be right back. After this word.
We'll be right back.
After this word.
Raise the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more to reach the professionals who are more likely to find your ad relevant. Plus, with 1 billion members on LinkedIn, that means you'll have access to 130 million decision makers and 10 million C-level executives. That's a lot of millions of the right people. Get started today and see how you can reach the right buyers with LinkedIn's enhanced targeting tools. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply.
When it comes to relevant content, you may have heard Jeff and me talk about the multis on this show. Multi-channel, multi-device, multi-persona, and multi-language. On that last one, let me ask, how confident are you that your content actually connects in every market? You're not sure? Well, it might be time to check out Phrase. In our experience, this stuff used to be hard, but Phrase makes it simple with its industry-leading AI localization platform that helps you deliver content in multiple languages without losing your tone, your message, or your mind. It automates the manual work, slashes review time, and gives you real data on what's working and where. Brands like Uber and Zendesk trust Phrase to scale their content across the globe and get it right every time. If you're serious about reaching more people and driving better results internationally, head over to phrase.com/MPN and take a look. That's phrase.com/MPN.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to the bar.
Thank you very much, mate. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It has been a lovely week here. Busy with work, all of that kind of stuff. So I can't complain. I'm not going to complain at all. And but absolutely looking for a lovely weekend. So glad we're in the bar and celebrating another week's end.
Yeah, nice. And I think we could probably both use these short weeks more often, right? But
Indeed.
Have to pack in 4 days into 5 days, but it's been nice.
I will take it all the time. Yeah, I will take it all the time.
And we wind up back in the bar. What are we drinking this week, mate?
We have a drink that I was just in the mood for, and it's one that we've actually had here in the bar before. So it is a slight repeat of something that we've done over the last, but it's very hard not to repeat based on...
Good Lord, you're right.
How many shows we've done. But this is the Boulevardier cocktail. And if you like a Negroni and you like whiskey, you're going to love this one. So I'm a little bit on a whiskey kick because of my recent trip to Scotland. This is basically a whiskey Negroni. And so you can play a little bit with the ratios of stuff here, depending on the whiskey and depending on what you want to do with the sweet vermouth or whether you like sweet vermouth. But this is a really easy drink to make. Basically, you find bourbon. So bourbon is much better than Scotch whiskey, by the way, on this, even though I'm hot on Scotch whiskey.
Yes.
And so you just basically have 1.5 parts of your bourbon whiskey, basically 1 part sweet vermouth, and then basically 1 part either bitter orange aperitif or as like a Campari or something like that, and then a twist of lemon. And it's all of that. Put that into a shaker, add your ice to the shaker, add, all your ingredients, obviously, and then shake it up and then strain that into a chilled martini glass and lemon twist. And you basically have your Boulevardier. It's a lovely, lovely bourbon-based Negroni.
Nice. And I've just tried to write down Boulevardier in my notes, and I don't think any of these letters are correct.
No, it's Boulevard. And IER, like Boulevard.
Nice. Nice. And that sounds like it comes from somewhere sophisticated in French, presumably.
I'm guessing it. I'm going to guess that it's French in origin just because of the name, but who knows? Yeah.
No, it sounds like something you might have in like a black and white movie that's based in New Orleans or something.
It does indeed. It does indeed.
I'll have the Boulevardier.
I can put on my best French accent and say, hello, I want the Boulevardier. And all of your French audience just rolled their eyes and went, no, stop doing that. Stop.
Zut alors. All right. Yeah. And I'm going to try and make a connection between that conversation about French and the question I wanted to ask you this week.
Yes.
It's actually going back to something we've discussed, kind of touched on a couple of times. And because of the tightness, shortness, whatever you would say, of these conversations, I sometimes want to dig in a little bit more. But we've talked before about differentiation, about being different and distinct. But the thing I always think about with these things is if you're too different, you kind of fall out of the category that everybody knows you for. So how does one, especially in B2B where everything looks the fucking same and is all blue or beige, is how do you stay relevant to the customer, to what the prospect is looking for, but still be distinct? I think that's my question to you in the bar this week.
Yeah, I mean, and so the word that I've started to use there a lot is just uncommon, right? And so we get wrapped around the axle of different, right, or unique, and it's interesting because even if you look at the difference between differentiation and distinctive, right?
Yeah,
and so there's. When we think of something, we usually say, okay, this thing is distinct from, right? Meaning separate from, right?
Yeah.
But we don't say distinctive from, right? So we don't say it's distinctive from, right? In other words, so for example, a purple duck is a very distinct kind of bird, right?
Yes.
But, or excuse me, I should say a duck is a very distinct kind of bird. It's a very specific, separate from other kinds of birds in the sense that it is a duck. But if I say a purple duck, well, now that's a distinctive duck, right?
Yeah.
And so that, if you start framing it and thinking of your messaging and what your story is or your brand or whatever as rather as distinctive, rather than trying to be unique, because you're not unique. Almost certainly you're not unique in the world today, right? And if you are somehow by chance unique, you're going to be unique for about 10 minutes before somebody else is following in your path.
Yeah.
And so because what happens, and this is especially true in B2B, when we start thinking about being unique and our unique value proposition or our unique sales proposition or our unique brand value, is we get so wrapped around the idea of being unique or distinct, as it were, that ultimately what ends up happening is that we do create distinction, right? We create ourselves as a distinct duck, right? In other words, we are separate from other birds in the sense that we are there, but we now confuse people because they don't really understand what space we fall into. And this happens all the time with B2B technology companies. And I'll, you'll recognize this right away, given your background, right? You'll have a technology, startup say, we're not like anybody else in the marketplace. Like we have no competition right now. We're unlike anybody that's out there. And you go, okay, but that's not a good thing. That's
exactly.
not, if you have no competition, like if you have absolutely zero competition, you have to ask why that is. Similarly, if you go, well, we do have competitions, but we're completely unique because of X or Y, and you start hearing what X or Y is, it's usually, not always, in fact, you can create separate from, but it's usually not a good thing either. In other words, you're so separated, you've positioned yourself so separated from the rest of the class that, you are unique, and you don't fit into this category anymore, even though you consider those other people in your category to be competitive or, corollary or whatever it is. But you've now separated yourself so much that people don't understand what it is you do.
Yeah.
And so instead, what I have found is that it is better to think about how you create yourself as either uncommon, which I like as a word, or distinctive, right? So in other words, yes, we're a duck, but we are a purple duck, right? We do things differently. We're uncommon in the world. And that to me is what I've started doing is instead of asking, as I work with brand, especially in smaller or B2B organizations or those kinds of things, instead of trying to figure out their unique value proposition or their unique messaging or their unique sales proposition, I often say, let's talk about our uncommon sales proposition or our uncommon value proposition. How are we uncommon in a world that has the stuff? And now we're asking a different and highly qualitative question that makes us think more deeply about how is it that we actually do separate ourselves as a purple duck in a world of ducks. And that to me is a much more interesting take on differentiation.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I mean, that was really the nub of my question, really, because it's a balance that you've got to kind of, and I think you've articulated it really well, because however purple your duck is, it still has to resemble a duck. Still has to, and you have
want
to
it to. Yeah, you want it to, right?
Yeah,
and you
have to
want that familiarity so that people recognize, especially in a highly competitive market where there's a lot of options, you need some level of familiarity. Like, if Apple made the iPhone, or any, company made their phone, there's a very common look for phones these days, right? And everybody sort of, let's call it copies each other, but there are also distinctive features for each. Yeah. And so you wouldn't want to offer a phone out in the market that looks like a bread box, right? Because that's not what people are familiar with. And even though it would be distinct and different and unique as a phone, it would fail because people don't find familiarity with it.
Yeah. And also this idea that you have no competitors, and you hear that a lot. And I always have a picture in my mind of a physical market. And if you have a physical market and there's only one one stand or stall, get my pronunciation right, and then that's not a market because people won't know to go there, right? And you're the only one there. You need other stalls around you. You need people talking about the market. You need all of that stuff happening for the commerce to come into that category, that space, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. When you start to, and markets become crowded as they become more popular. I mean, just look at AI, right? I mean, AI is a great example of this that we can study almost in real time, right? In November of 23, let's say, it was a very small marketplace, right? The frontier models were literally sort of, you had kind of OpenAI and Anthropic and Google and Meta, and that was kind of it. I'm maybe missing somebody right off the bat, but it was a handful, right? Today, there are, tens, hundreds of ways to engage with AI that are out there, everything from DeepSeek to everything else. And so, so when you start to think about it, it's like, how does someone like AI, where they start out as the only duck in the room, right? How do they actually start to reformulate their brand and their message to become a purple duck, right?
Yeah.
And arguably, and it's really been interesting, they did a really shit job of it, until recently, and I would point to their new CMO and, some of the new efforts that they've really put into their marketing over the last 5 months, as helping them separate themselves from the crowd by doing things that are a little more uncommon. And there are varying degrees of that, right? So if you look at Google, for example, Google's doing they do a shit job with marketing most of the time, but if you look at their AI of Gemini and even what they did this last week, by throwing more and more spaghetti against the walls against, their Google marketing, all these features that they're offering now and all that kind of stuff. It's like, it looks like everybody else, right? They're not creating any uncommon value at all. It's just like, me too, me too, me too, me too. Yeah. And so it's that, thinking that through is a really important part of what we're doing these days.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting because there's a couple of points there. One of them is when you're early in the category and you are reasonably unique, you're actually defining you're defining that category, and then everybody that comes after you, is kind of playing in that space that you've kind of defined, which has its positives and its negatives, right, around that. So, people are being trained on how to use generative AI by using ChatGPT, let's say, if they're an early adopter of that. And so if they move to something else, they're going to expect a certain way of working, right, that's been defined for them. So the category is defined. And the second point I want to make there is, when you were talking about the fact that we need to kind of anchor ourselves in the category, I've got in my head the old Hero Hub Hygiene, who was that Google as well, the structure of messaging, that you need to say, yes, we are like this competitor, or, and get that grounding in place and admit it, not say, no, we're completely different from everybody else. A couple of points there. I kind of got in there.
Yeah. It's, a lot to unpack there, right? It's,
sorry.
Yeah. No, it's, arguably it is the challenge. It is the full stop challenge of marketing these days, right?
Yeah.
Is in a noisy world where information is, commoditized, right, to a great extent because of AI and because of the internet and because of search and everything that's happening. Because the ability to create content is now commoditized to such an extent that it's now, being automated in many ways. So the noise has just gotten noisier. The ability to process information and create, more noise is there. And we always forget that technology has not just affected marketing, but it's affected everything. So things like manufacturing and product design and development and logistics and shipping and all the things that used to be moats for companies have largely disappeared, right? Now there's the whole thing about tariffs and global and where things are made these days, that causing some artificial pressure on all of those things. But largely speaking, the only thing you have that basically can't be copied these days is who you are, right? Who you are as an uncommon way of offering a product or solution. The product will be copied. The way you message the product will be copied. The way you price the product will be copied. Everything can and will be copied at a much lower effort than you've ever imagined before. And so the only thing you have is the uncommon way that you basically create value and the activities you perform. It is classic competitive advantage. The only one left is really how you do what you do.
Yeah. And all of that stuff is going to get much quicker with AI, isn't it? Because AI is the sum of everything that went on before. And so if you've put something new into the market and that idea gets snapped up by a generative AI, then the next person that comes along and asks, oh, how would I do this? Then it knows, right? those iterations are going to be much quicker, aren't they? The way that people can innovate based on what went before. Yeah, that's interesting.
That's right.
So where will people find uncommon advice about marketing, Mr. Rose?
You will find it. I'm gonna once again, as I did last week, I'm going to promote my little newsletter.
Nice.
Which is seventhbearlens.substack.com. It's my little Substack. You can get there via my website, which is seventhbear.com. And that's I like it because I'm having a lot of fun with my little newsletter. So
nice. Yeah, it's very good. And I enjoy your writing anyway. So, and then last week when you were talking about writing a book, then I'm all in. And when people spin the dial on the interwebs, where they're going to find you?
They're going to find me mostly on LinkedIn these days. Nice. And that's on social media is pretty much the only place I hang out these days.
Nice. And the other place that you hang out once a week is in this bar. Will you be there next? Will you be here next week?
Absolutely.
I look forward to it, my friend. I'll see you there. Thank you, Robert. I like the idea of uncommon value. And there is an article on the Content Marketing Institute's blog from Robert that I will include in the show notes. That is accompanied by a YouTube video. And I just discovered a snippet on CMI's Instagram reel. Just search CMI content. I'm sure you'll find Robert on there. So that's a wrap on our visit to the Rose and Rockstar. Thank you for joining us. You can find all those links, plus links to Robert and me, in the show notes at rockstarcmo.com, where you can also find links to our newsletter, blog, previous episodes, and all the things. Coming up this week on Rockstar CMO FM, Kathy is back for a monthly visit to chat all things content. And as you heard, Robert will be back in the bar on Saturday. And in the meantime, just remember, as Dewey Finn said in the film The School of Rock, you can't just say it, man. You've got to feel it in your blood and guts if you want to rock.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Hennika Watkins-Porter hosts The Entrepreneurial You, empowering entrepreneurs with insights on leadership, business, and success. Hennika, tell listeners what to expect from your show.
So we provide innovative business strategies and practical solutions to common entrepreneurial challenges.
And where can people subscribe?
Find us at hennikawatkinsporter.com, as well as the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcasts.net, or search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.